Exploring the rocky coast at sunset trapped us against a cliff. The sun hung low, casting long shadows across the jagged cliffs and smooth boulders. My friend and I had our gear packed: water bottles, snacks, first aid kit, and a map showing tide times and safe zones. We set off with high spirits, but little did we know this was going to be the start of one of the scariest nights of my life. It's crucial to check local tides before venturing into coastal areas. Low tide can turn treacherous as water levels rise quickly, trapping you between cliffs and the incoming sea. Always carry a means to call for help in case you get stranded. As we walked along the beach, the waves crashed against the rocks, their rhythm almost hypnotic. The air was cool, hinting at a potentially cold night ahead if we weren't prepared. We kept talking and laughing as we made our way closer to this secluded cove. However, it's important to be cautious of changing tides. The water can rise quickly, trapping you between steep cliffs or rocky shores where escape might not be easy. This spot looks serene, but it's crucial to understand local tide patterns before venturing into any coastal area for swimming or exploration. But there was one detail that slipped under our radar: the tide table. By now it had already started to rise rapidly. The waves began lapping at our feet, inching closer with each passing minute. We didn't think much of it at first. After all, we were just a few meters from higher ground and the terrain looked manageable. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting everything in an eerie twilight glow, something felt off. It's crucial to check tide tables before venturing near coastal areas, as the rising water can quickly trap you against cliffs or other obstacles with no easy escape route. We started to notice small details that shouldn't have been there. The water was higher than it should be for this time of day. The rocks beneath our feet turned slick with seaweed and salt water, making footing treacherous. We tried to climb up onto some boulders, but each step brought us closer to another wave that seemed to stretch towards us like a living thing. It's crucial to recognize signs of an incoming tide or rising water levels early and seek higher ground immediately, as the risk of being cut off from escape routes increases rapidly. No knife, no matches, no light. What now? We were trapped between the rising tide and the towering cliffs. As the water level rose, the rocks around us transformed into a slippery labyrinth with no clear exit. Each attempt to find higher ground led us either back to our starting point or deeper into this dangerous maze of slick paths. It was crucial to conserve energy and avoid unnecessary movement, as cold water can quickly lead to hypothermia and dehydration in such conditions. Stay calm and look for any possible safe vantage points or natural features that could provide temporary shelter from the incoming tide. The cold began to seep through our clothes as night fell. A chill wind picked up, making every step harder and colder than the last. The dark water whispered warnings of its power, strong currents and hidden dangers lurking beneath the surface. It was then that I realized how far from any help we were. No phone signal, no nearby houses or roads. We had wandered too far down this coast, beyond the reach of immediate assistance in an emergency. In such situations, it's crucial to stay calm, find high ground away from cliffs and water edges, and seek shelter immediately to avoid hypothermia. Always inform someone about your planned route and expected return time before heading into remote areas. I can still feel the damp sand against my skin as I searched for higher ground to avoid being washed away by another wave. Each lapping sound of water against rock made me freeze in terror. The darkness closed around us like a suffocating blanket, and I could see nothing but blackness except for the occasional flash of phosphorescence in the waves. In situations like this, it's crucial to stay calm and find higher ground quickly, as hypothermia sets in rapidly with cold water exposure. The first rule you learn is this: respect the unpredictable power of nature. That night we found ourselves at its mercy, trapped by the rising tide against a steep cliff. But there was one more detail that made everything worse: wildlife. It started with shadows moving behind us, the sound of something large and unseen scurrying through the underbrush. Then came a low growl, followed by a flash of teeth in the darkness. We knew we weren't alone anymore. In situations like this, it's crucial to stay calm and quiet, avoid sudden movements that might provoke an animal, and slowly back away from the area if you can do so safely without turning your back on the animal. Remember, many wild animals are more scared of humans than vice versa, but always give them plenty of space to retreat. If you encounter aggressive wildlife, know how to react based on the species. Some may be best left alone and observed from a distance, while others might require immediate defensive action. Always carry bear spray if in grizzly country or other areas with dangerous animals, and learn basic first aid for animal attacks before heading into the wild. The fear became a constant companion as we struggled to find safety. The cold wind cut through my clothes like knives, threatening hypothermia if we didn't act fast. Every moment felt like it could be our last. Panic set in, and every decision seemed wrong. The only thing I knew was that staying still meant certain death by the rising tide. We needed to move quickly but carefully, finding high ground or a safe spot before the water reached us. Stay calm, move quickly but carefully, and stay alert for a safe route up or out. Remember, different regions have rules about coastal access and property rights, so be sure to know local laws before venturing into unfamiliar areas. We began to crawl up the cliffs, using handholds and footholds where we could find them. Each wave brought with it the threat of being swept back into the water, so every move had to be deliberate and cautious. Our hands were bleeding from sharp rocks, but we kept going, knowing that rest was not an option here. Every step forward was a battle against cold, exhaustion, and terror, and we had to stay focused on reaching higher ground where we could safely recover and assess our next steps. The climb was brutal. I can still feel the weight of my backpack as I pulled myself up slick boulders. My muscles screamed with every pull and push. It felt like an eternity before we finally found solid ground, a flat outcropping that seemed to be just above the reach of high tide. We collapsed there, panting and shaking, knowing we needed to set up camp quickly or risk being stranded if the tide came in higher than expected. Always carry a tide chart and have an escape route planned when climbing coastal cliffs. The real test was yet to come. How do you stay warm with just thin clothing and a chilly breeze? Hypothermia can set in quickly under these conditions. The key is to use natural materials like leaves, grass, or bark to create insulation and build a shelter that blocks the wind and provides dry ground. Prioritize finding suitable materials and constructing a proper shelter as soon as possible to prevent hypothermia. Always ensure you know local laws about collecting vegetation in protected areas before attempting this technique. Dry, small, sheltered from the wind. We started by building a small fire using only dry wood that we found under some rocks and in protected spots where it had remained dry enough to burn. It was hard work, but every snap of kindling meant another moment of warmth against the cold night air. We huddled close, sharing body heat and trying not to think about what might come next. Remember, when building a fire in coastal areas, always be cautious with your surroundings. Avoid using any flammable materials near cliffs or areas prone to sudden changes like high tides that could trap you. But the worst part was yet to come. The realization that we had made a terrible mistake by ignoring basic safety rules like not checking local tide times and venturing too far from accessible escape routes or rescue assistance. Always stay informed about local laws and regulations, and ensure you have knowledge of the area's natural hazards before setting out on any adventure near cliffs or waterways. The darkness and cold were relentless. Every breath felt like it would be our last. We talked in whispers, keeping each other's minds focused on survival rather than giving in to the fear. It was those moments that taught me something crucial. When you're lost or stranded, your mindset is just as important as your gear. But remember, staying calm and making smart decisions can save lives. Always prioritize finding shelter from the elements, start a fire if possible, and signal for help. Keeping hydrated and knowing how to purify water are also critical skills. Most importantly, know local laws about survival techniques like fishing or trapping and respect wildlife protections. We stayed up all night, carefully managing the fire to keep it going as we moved around to stay warm. The only sounds were the distant crashing of waves on the rocks, the occasional growl from unknown animals lurking in the darkness, and our own heavy breathing. It's crucial to remember that hypothermia can set in quickly if you're not prepared and active during cold nights by a coastline or in any wilderness setting. Always prioritize staying dry and warm, and ensure your fire is safely contained and constantly tended to. The sun finally began to rise, casting long shadows on the cliff faces. Dawn revealed a narrow path leading upward from the beach towards higher ground. While we had survived the night, the challenge was far from over. It's crucial to navigate with care and be aware of local laws regarding conservation areas or restricted access zones that might apply to such cliffs in coastal regions. We packed our remaining gear and began ascending the rocky path. Progress was painstakingly slow, with each step a laborious effort against gravity and fatigue. Yet with persistence, we inched closer to higher ground and potential safety. By mid-morning, we found a clear spot with mobile reception and called for help, sending out an SOS signal. We stayed huddled together to conserve warmth while waiting for rescue, which arrived later that day. Remember, if ever in danger near water or cliffs, prioritize safety by signaling for help early and seek shelter from the elements to prevent hypothermia and dehydration.